What if I told you that the book of Revelation holds secrets about the future, events that could happen in our lifetime? Sounds like something straight out of a movie, right? But what if I told you it's more than just fantasy? It's a book that has been a source of fascination, fear, and faith for nearly 2,000 years. We're talking about a text that's filled with cryptic imagery, mysterious visions, and prophecy that many believe will come to pass in our time. Now let's take a moment to consider this incredible, ancient piece of writing, Revelation. It's the final book of the Christian Bible, written by the Apostle John during a time of great turmoil. The book is known for its dramatic scenes of apocalyptic judgment and its promise of hope in the face of destruction. It's been the subject of intense study, speculation, and even debate for centuries. Some see it as a roadmap for the future, while others view it as symbolic, a message of perseverance during tough times. But here's the thing. Revelation isn't just some ancient text that's locked away in history. It's a book that still resonates with people today. Whether you're religious or not, the ideas it presents are powerful, thought-provoking, and let's face it, a little bit thrilling. The themes of good versus evil, of ultimate triumph, and of a future that seems to hang in the balance are all deeply human concepts. We all want to know what's coming next, don't we? And that's why Revelation still holds such a powerful grip on our imagination. Now think about it. This book was written almost 2,000 years ago, and yet many of the events described in Revelation seem eerily relevant to the world we live in today. Wars, natural disasters, societal upheaval. Are we seeing echoes of these things in the headlines around the world? Some believe that Revelation's prophecies are unfolding right before our eyes. Others think it's all just a metaphor for the struggles we face every day. But either way, there's no denying that this book continues to spark deep conversations and raise questions about where we're headed as a society and as a planet. The thing about Revelation is that it's not just about doom and gloom, it's also about hope. Amid the terrifying imagery of beasts, plagues, and the Battle of Armageddon, there's a promise of redemption, a vision of a new world where peace and justice reign. It's a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there's always the possibility of light breaking through. So, whether you see Revelation as a prophecy of things to come, or as a timeless message about resilience and faith, one thing is certain. It's a book that continues to captivate, challenge, and inspire. And who knows, maybe some of the mysteries it contains are more relevant to our lives today than we ever imagined. Let's dive into the heart of Revelation and talk about one of the most captivating moments, the vision of John. But before we get there, let's take a step back and ask, who exactly was John of Patmos, the man who received this incredible vision? John wasn't just any ordinary person. He was one of the 12 apostles, a close follower of Jesus, and a key figure in early Christianity. After spending years spreading the message of Christ, John found himself exiled to a small island called Patmos, off the coast of modern-day Turkey. This exile wasn't a vacation. It was a result of persecution. The Roman Empire at the time wasn't too fond of Christians, and they often punished those who spread the faith. But it was in this difficult moment, when John was isolated and perhaps even feeling abandoned, that he received one of the most powerful and transformative visions in history. On that island, John had a spiritual experience unlike anything most of us could imagine. He was taken into a heavenly realm, where he saw things that would have been both awe-inspiring and terrifying. Imagine this. He saw 7 golden candlesticks, and in the middle of them there was someone who looked like the Son of Man, Jesus, standing in all his glory. But this wasn't the Jesus we're used to seeing in the Gospels, calm and humble. No, this was a vision of Jesus that was powerful, radiant, and overwhelming. In this vision, Jesus was described as having eyes that were like flames of fire, burning with intensity and wisdom. His feet were like glowing bronze, and his voice sounded like the roar of rushing waters. And then, the most striking image of all, Jesus had a sword coming out of his mouth, symbolizing the power and authority of his words. His face shone like the sun in all its brilliance. Now picture that for a second. It's hard to grasp the full meaning of this imagery, but it's not meant to be taken literally. This is all symbolic, representing divine power, purity, and truth. Jesus wasn't just a man anymore. He was the embodiment of divine strength and glory. Why is this vision so important for Christians today? Well, for one, it's a reminder of who Jesus truly is. In the Gospels, we see Jesus as a man who walked among us, teaching love, compassion, and forgiveness. But in Revelation, we see him as the exalted King, reigning from a position of ultimate power and authority. It's a vision of Christ's majesty, reminding us that he is not only the Savior who died on the cross, but also the triumphant ruler of the universe. For modern Christians, this vision is a call to recognize the sovereignty of Christ in every aspect of life. It's a powerful image that reassures believers that no matter how dark or chaotic the world may seem, Jesus reigns over all. The sword coming from his mouth symbolizes the truth that will ultimately triumph, and his fiery eyes remind us that nothing can escape his gaze. He sees all, knows all, and in the end, justice will prevail. But it's not just about power and judgment. This vision also conveys hope. It tells Christians that Jesus is not distant or disconnected. He is alive, active, and intimately involved in the world's struggles. His presence is real, even in the midst of hardship. For those going through suffering or persecution, this vision offers comfort, knowing that the one who stands in glory, with all power and authority, is also the one who walks with them in their pain. John's vision of Jesus in Revelation is both awe-inspiring and humbling. It's a vivid, almost indescribable portrayal of the divine, one that invites us to reflect on who Jesus is in all his glory and how we can align our lives with his eternal truth. It reminds Christians that the Jesus they follow is not only a teacher of love, but also the King of Kings, whose power, righteousness, and authority will one day bring ultimate peace to a broken world. In the book of Revelation, one of the most profound sections comes in the form of messages directed to 7 different churches in Asia. These churches weren't just random congregations. They represented different spiritual conditions that were present in the early Christian communities. And these messages, directly from Jesus, delivered through John, were meant to speak into the hearts of those believers, offering guidance, encouragement, and yes, even some stern warnings. Let's start with a quick overview of these 7 churches. They were located in what is now modern-day Turkey, and each one had its own strengths and struggles. The churches were in cities called Ephesus, Smyrna, Pergamum, Thyatira, Sardis, Philadelphia, and Laodicea. Each of these churches received a personalized message from Christ, tailored to their specific situation. But why did each church get its own unique message? Well, Jesus, in his infinite wisdom, understood that each community faced different challenges, whether it was persecution, false teachings, complacency, or spiritual apathy. These messages weren't one-size-fits-all. They were like spiritual checkups for each congregation, calling them to examine their hearts, their actions, and their commitment to Him. Now let's dive into a few key examples to see how this applies to us today. Take the church in Ephesus, for instance. They were doing many things right. They were known for their hard work, their persistence, and their ability to resist false teachings. But despite all that, there was one major issue. They had lost their first love. What does that mean? Well, Jesus was saying that while they were still going through the motions, doing the right things, they had lost the passion and love they once had for Him. Their hearts had grown cold, and their actions were no longer fueled by that initial, vibrant love for Christ. This warning is just as relevant to modern Christians. How many of us, over time, can find ourselves doing all the right things, going to church, volunteering, being involved, yet somehow we've drifted from that deep, personal connection with Christ. It's a subtle shift, but it can make all the difference. Then there's the church in Laodicea, one of the most well-known examples of spiritual apathy in Revelation. Jesus calls them lukewarm. He says, "I know your deeds, that you are neither hot nor cold. I wish you were either one or the other." Now, this is one of the most striking and honestly harshest messages in Revelation. Laodicea was a wealthy, prosperous city, and the church there had become complacent. They thought they had everything they needed, but spiritually, they were lacking. Their faith was neither passionate nor completely abandoned. It was just lukewarm. And that's dangerous, isn't it? Lukewarm faith isn't necessarily bad, but it's not good either. It's like when you drink a cup of coffee that's supposed to be hot, but it's lost all its warmth. Or when you want to sip cold water, but it's become tepid. It's unsatisfying. In today's world, I think many people can relate to this feeling of being spiritually lukewarm. We live in a world where distractions are everywhere. Work, social media, entertainment, responsibilities, and sometimes our relationship with God takes a back seat. We might go through the motions, attend church, or even say the right things, but deep down there's a lack of fire, a lack of true passion for Christ. And just like the Laodiceans, we can become spiritually self-sufficient, thinking we don't need anything because we have everything, until we realize that our spiritual lives have grown cold. And then there's the church in Smyrna, which received a message of encouragement. This church was facing intense persecution, and yet they were praised for their steadfast faith. Jesus tells them not to fear the suffering ahead because, in the end, they would receive the crown of life. In our time, this message speaks directly to Christians facing persecution around the world. In many places, followers of Christ still face threats to their lives, their freedom, and their rights. But even in the midst of suffering, the message to Smyrna serves as a reminder that faithfulness to Christ, even in the hardest of times, is always worth it. Each church received a message that was deeply personal and relevant to their unique situation. But what's striking is that when you really look at these messages, they can be applied to Christianity today. whether it's the warning against losing your first love, the caution about becoming lukewarm, or the call to remain faithful despite hardship. These messages resonate in a world that's full of distractions, struggles, and challenges. In many ways, the spiritual warnings given to these churches are a reflection of the struggles many Christians face today. We, too, can lose sight of our passion for God when life gets busy. We, too, can find ourselves feeling lukewarm when the things of the world start to take priority over our faith. And we, too, can be tempted to grow complacent in our walk with God. But just as these churches were called to repent and return to their first love, so are we. These messages are timeless. They serve as a mirror for us to reflect on our own spiritual journeys and to ask ourselves, are we on fire for Christ, or have we become lukewarm? Are we holding on to our passion and faith, or are we simply going through the motions? The challenge remains the same. It's not just about what we do, but about the heart behind it. And if we find that we've grown cold, the message is clear. Return to the love you had at first. Reignite that passion and let it fuel everything you do. Because when we're fully committed, fully passionate, and fully in love with Christ, that's when our faith truly shines. In the book of Revelation, there's a stunning prophecy that captures the imagination of millions of people around the world. Behold, he comes with the clouds, and every eye shall see him. These words speak of the second coming of Christ, the return of Jesus in all his glory and majesty to bring about the final fulfillment of God's plan for the world. But what exactly does this prophecy mean? And how do different Christian denominations interpret it? Let's explore this. The idea of Christ's return is one of the most deeply held beliefs in Christianity. But here's where it gets interesting. There are different ways of understanding what this return looks like. Some believe it's a literal event that will happen in the future, while others interpret it more symbolically. Let's start with the more straightforward interpretation, the literal second coming. For many Christians, this prophecy is taken literally, meaning that they believe Jesus will return physically to the earth one day. Picture this, a cloud-filled sky with Christ descending in glory as every person on earth witnesses his return. This event is believed to mark the end of human history as we know it, with a final judgment of the living and the dead. For those who hold this view, this event will be unmistakable. Jesus will appear in the sky, and everyone will see him. No one will miss it. It's not a hidden event. It's a world-altering, awe-inspiring moment. This interpretation is especially prevalent in more conservative or evangelical Christian circles. They see the second coming as an actual, physical event where Jesus will come to establish his kingdom, defeat evil, and bring peace to the earth. This belief is tied to the concept of the end times, where various signs and events are seen as precursors to Christ's return. Things like wars, natural disasters, and societal upheaval. Many of these believers feel that Christ's return could happen at any time, and they live with an eager anticipation for this event. On the other hand, there are Christians who interpret the second coming more symbolically, rather than viewing it as a literal event where Jesus will physically return to earth. They see it as a powerful metaphor for the ultimate triumph of good over evil. In this view, coming with the clouds might not refer to an actual descent from the sky, but rather to Christ's ongoing, active presence in the world. For these Christians, The prophecy speaks of the gradual fulfillment of God's kingdom on earth, one that takes place through the lives and actions of believers who bring about change through love, justice, and peace. It's less about waiting for a future dramatic event, and more about recognizing that Christ is already here, working through us in the present. This symbolic interpretation can be found in more liberal or progressive Christian traditions. For them, the second coming isn't something to be waited for in the distant future, but something they live into each day. It's about creating a world that reflects Christ's love and justice in tangible ways, trusting that, as individuals and communities, they are helping to bring Christ's reign into the world in the here and now. So, you might be wondering, how do different denominations see this? The literal interpretation is common in evangelical, Pentecostal, and many Protestant circles, where the focus is on future events and the hope of Christ's physical return. These groups often place a great deal of emphasis on the book of Revelation and other biblical prophecies about the end times. On the other hand, mainline Protestant denominations, Roman Catholics, and Eastern Orthodox Christians often lean toward a more symbolic or spiritual interpretation. They might see Christ's return as something that happens progressively, where Christ's influence grows through the spread of the gospel and through acts of justice, peace, and love in the world. They may still believe in the ultimate return of Christ, but they might not expect it to be a dramatic, physical event in the same way. Both interpretations are rooted in the belief that Christ will one day return, and that his return will bring about the fulfillment of God's kingdom. The difference lies in how this return is understood, whether as a future event that will literally take place, or as a symbolic, ongoing process that reflects Christ's presence in the world. Regardless of the interpretation, the prophecy of Christ's return carries with it a powerful message for all Christians. It's a reminder that the world is not as it should be, and that there is a promise of a better, more just, and peaceful future. Whether you view it as a literal future event or as a present, ongoing reality, the core of the message is the same. Christ is coming, and when he does, things will be set right. The key takeaway here is that this prophecy calls Christians to live with hope, anticipation, and purpose. It encourages believers to keep their eyes on the bigger picture and to remain faithful, knowing that no matter how chaotic the world may seem, God's plan is unfolding. The return of Christ, whether seen as a dramatic event or as a symbol of his eternal presence, reminds Christians to stay faithful, to keep loving, and to trust that in the end God will make all things new. In the book of Revelation, there's a part that brings us face to face with one of the most mysterious and dramatic sequences, the opening of the 7 seals. These seals aren't just random symbols. They represent the unfolding of God's divine plan for the world, a process that ultimately leads to the final victory of good over evil. The seals mark the beginning of a series of events that are nothing short of apocalyptic, setting the stage for the end of the world as we know it. So, what are the 7 seals, and why are they so important? The seals are a series of scrolls sealed with 7 wax seals, each one containing a prophecy or judgment that will be revealed when a seal is broken, when the Lamb, who represents Jesus Christ, begins to open these seals. Each one triggers a series of intense and often terrifying events. The 7 seals symbolize God's will being carried out in history, and they lay the groundwork for the trials and tribulations that will lead to the ultimate establishment of God's kingdom. These seals reveal a process of judgment, struggle, and hope. Now let's focus on the first four seals because they're especially well known. When the first four seals are broken, we encounter the famous Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse. These horsemen are often seen as symbols of some of the greatest challenges humanity will face. Things like conquest, war, famine, and death. Each horseman rides a different colored horse, and each one brings a different kind of devastation. First, let's talk about the white horse and its rider, who represents conquest. This horseman is often depicted as riding with a bow and a crown, symbolizing a conqueror or someone who seeks to dominate and subdue. While this may seem like a positive figure at first, after all, he's carrying a crown. What he brings is a wave of conquest and power that'll lead to oppression and violence. Conquest, in this context, isn't about bringing peace or justice, but about imposing control and subjugating others. It's about the unchecked ambition of those who seek to rule over others by force. Then comes the red horse, carrying its rider who represents war. This horseman is a symbol of violence, conflict, and bloodshed. As the rider takes his place, peace is taken away from the earth, and people turn against one another. The red horse signifies the devastation that war brings, loss of life, destruction, and the tearing apart of societies. This is a universal theme throughout history, as we've seen countless wars fought over land, power, resources, and ideology. War isn't just about physical conflict. It's about the deeper human struggle for control, justice, and survival. And even in today's world, with ongoing conflicts in places like Ukraine, the Middle East, and other regions, the red horse seems as relevant as ever. Next is the black horse, whose rider brings famine. The rider of the black horse holds a pair of scales, symbolizing the scarcity and imbalance that famine brings. Famine isn't just about the lack of food. It's about the social, political, and economic inequalities that lead to widespread hunger and suffering. It's a powerful reminder that in times of scarcity, the rich and powerful often have more access to resources, while the poor and vulnerable suffer the most. Today, we see the effects of famine and food insecurity in parts of the world ravaged by war, climate change, and economic collapse. Even in wealthier nations, there are growing concerns about food systems and supply chains, highlighting the ongoing relevance of this seal. Finally, the pale horse, ridden by death, brings the end of life itself. This horseman symbolizes the inevitability of death and destruction, and he is often accompanied by hell itself, ready to claim the souls of those who perish. The pale horse signifies the ultimate reality of mortality and the devastation of widespread death. While death is a natural part of life, the pale horse represents the death that comes as a result of war, famine, disease, and injustice. The kind of death that isn't peaceful, but rather a consequence of human suffering and chaos. The COVID-19 pandemic, with its massive global death toll, brings a haunting sense of relevance to this horseman, reminding us how fragile life can be and how quickly disaster can strike on a global scale. When we look at these four horsemen in the context of the modern world, it's almost eerie how closely their symbolism matches the challenges we face today. We live in a time marked by wars and conflicts that seem endless, by the growing divide between the haves and the have-nots, and by the constant threat of death, whether through disease, disaster, or violence. Global unrest, economic inequality, and climate change are just a few of the modern-day riders that bring destruction, chaos, and suffering. Now this might sound bleak, and understandably so, because the Four Horsemen are not about hope or peace. They represent the darker side of human existence. But here's the thing. The Seven Seals as a whole are not just about judgment and destruction. They're part of a bigger picture. After the seals are broken, and these horsemen ride through the earth, the events that follow lead to the ultimate victory of God's kingdom. Revelation doesn't leave us in despair. It moves toward hope, renewal, and the triumph of life over death. So, as we look at these ancient prophecies, we can't ignore their relevance to today's world. The Four Horsemen are symbols of the very real forces that shape human history, and they serve as a warning. But they also call us to action, to work for peace, justice, and mercy in a world that often feels out of control. Yes, the seals reveal judgment, but they also reveal God's ultimate plan to redeem the world. And that's where we find our hope in the midst of the chaos. When we talk about the mark of the beast and the infamous number 666, we're diving into one of the most talked about, debated, and mysterious aspects of the book of Revelation. These symbols have sparked countless interpretations and theories over the centuries. But what do they really mean? And more importantly, are they talking about something that's still to come? Or have they already been fulfilled in history? Let's break it down and see what this all really means. First, let's address the number itself. 666. In Revelation 13:18, it's written, "Let the one who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. The number 666 has become synonymous with evil, the devil, and apocalyptic destruction. But why this particular number? Well, in ancient times, numbers were often used symbolically, and 666 is widely believed to be a form of gematria, a type of numerical code where letters are assigned numerical values. Many scholars believe that the number 666 actually refers to a specific person or power, most commonly thought to be Emperor Nero, the Roman ruler who persecuted Christians in the 1st century. Nero's name, when written in Hebrew letters, is believed to add up to 666, which suggests that, in the context of Revelation, the number could be referring to the oppressive Roman Empire, or more specifically, to Nero's reign of terror against the early Christian community. For many early Christians, the beast represented the powers of the Roman Empire, which was seen as the embodiment of evil due to its persecution of Christ's followers. In this interpretation, 666 wasn't a far-off prophecy, but a description of something happening in their own time. But let's fast forward to today, where the number 666 has evolved into something much more mysterious and dramatic in the minds of many. We hear people connect the number to modern events, technologies, and even governments. So, what about the mark of the beast itself? The mark is described in Revelation 13:16-18 as something that people will have to take in order to buy or sell. It will be placed on their right hands or foreheads, and without it, there's no access to commerce or trade. This has led many to speculate about what this mark might look like. Some theories about the mark of the beast are more straightforward, suggesting that it will be a literal mark or physical symbol. For example, the idea of microchips or implants comes up often in modern discussions. People speculate that advances in technology, like RFID chips or biometric identification, could be the literal fulfillment of this prophecy. The idea is that, in a highly digitized world, having a way to track individuals and monitor their purchasing power could become a form of control, a mark that signifies allegiance to a particular system or government. Take a moment to think about it. In today's world, we're increasingly reliant on technology for almost everything. Our phones, our bank accounts, even our identities are now often stored and accessed digitally. Some people believe that the mark of the beast might manifest through these technological systems, especially as governments and corporations gain more control over personal data and financial transactions. In this interpretation, the mark becomes a symbol of compliance with a global system that demands control over individuals' lives and choices. On the other hand, there's a more symbolic approach to the mark of the beast. Instead of it being a literal mark or technological implant, some people interpret it as a symbol of allegiance to a corrupt system, a way of living in opposition to God's values. In this view, taking the mark isn't about an actual physical mark, but about accepting a way of life, one rooted in materialism, power, and selfishness, over spiritual and moral principles. So, for these individuals, the mark of the beast could be anything that pulls someone away from the core teachings of Christianity and encourages them to conform to worldly values. It's a powerful reminder to not allow anything, be it money, power, fame, or influence, to take precedence over one's commitment to God. This brings us to the question, is this a future event, or has it already happened? Some believe the mark of the beast is something that will take place in the distant future, as part of a global system of control that will arise in the end times. This view often links the mark to events like the rise of a powerful world leader, sometimes referred to as the Antichrist, who will unite the world under a single system of rule and demand that everyone conform. This interpretation is particularly popular in certain branches of evangelical Christianity, where it's viewed as a literal future event tied to apocalyptic prophecy. Others, however, believe that the mark of the beast has already been fulfilled, or at least symbolically fulfilled, through historical events. As mentioned earlier, many scholars point to the Roman Empire and Emperor Nero as the beast, and some argue that the mark was already present in the oppressive systems of control that existed in the past. In this sense, the mark of the beast is a symbol of all forms of political and social systems throughout history that seek to control, manipulate, and oppress individuals, pushing them to turn away from God's truth. Ultimately, whether you interpret the mark of the beast as something literal or symbolic, as a future event, or something that's already happened, the message of Revelation is clear. It's a warning to be vigilant. It's a call for believers to stay true to their faith and resist the temptation to compromise with a world that pulls them away from God's kingdom. Whether we're talking about technology, political power, or personal choices, the core lesson is the same. Never let anything come between you and your commitment to God. As we navigate our increasingly complex world, the mark of the beast serves as a reminder that the greatest battle isn't just physical, it's spiritual. In every era, there will be forces that try to draw us away from God. The question is, what will we choose? Will we choose the mark of the world, or will we stand firm in our faith, choosing God's way, no matter the cost? In the book of Revelation, we see the ultimate showdown between good and evil, a battle unlike anything we've ever imagined. At the heart of this cosmic struggle stands the Lamb and the Beast. The Lamb, representing Jesus Christ, symbolizes purity, sacrifice, and love, while the Beast is the embodiment of all that is evil, chaos, destruction, and rebellion against God. This isn't just a story of two characters facing off. It's the grandest war ever fought, the battle for the soul of the world. The Lamb is none other than Jesus himself. From the very beginning of Revelation, he's depicted as the Lamb who was slain, a symbol of sacrifice and redemption. He's the one who has already defeated sin and death through his death on the cross, and in Revelation, we see him take his rightful place in the throne room of heaven, ready to fulfill God's divine plan for the world. Jesus, as the Lamb, doesn't come to fight with physical weapons or armies. His triumph is not through violence, but through his love and sacrifice. In the ultimate battle, he is the one who leads the charge, and through his power, he brings about the ultimate defeat of evil. The Beast, on the other hand, represents everything that stands in opposition to God. Often associated with the Antichrist, this figure seeks to lead the world away from truth, pulling people into sin and idolatry. The Beast's power lies in deception, manipulation, and the desire for control. But no matter how powerful the Beast might seem, it is no match for the Lamb. The final battle unfolds in a dramatic, apocalyptic scene. As Revelation unfolds, we see the Beast's forces gather for a final stand against God's people, led by Satan himself. But this battle is over before it even begins. Satan, the great deceiver, is ultimately defeated. The Lamb, representing Jesus, triumphs with absolute authority. The forces of evil are crushed, and Satan is cast into the abyss. This isn't just a battle of armies. It's a spiritual victory. The victory of the Lamb is about the conquering of sin, the defeat of death, and the restoration of God's perfect creation. This battle may seem overwhelming at times, and we may face our own struggles in this world, wars, suffering, injustice, but Revelation reminds us that, in the end, it is God who has the final say. The Lamb's victory is a declaration that evil will not have the last word. The darkness will be overcome by light, and good will ultimately triumph. But the story doesn't end with the defeat of evil. It moves towards something even more breathtaking: heaven, the New Jerusalem, and the end of time. Revelation gives us a glimpse of a future that is far beyond our comprehension, where suffering, pain, and death are no more, and God dwells with his people forever. The vision of heaven in Revelation is nothing short of awe-inspiring. Streets of gold, a city so beautiful and radiant that it reflects the glory of God. This is the New Jerusalem, the eternal city that God will prepare for his people. It's a place where there is no more suffering, no more tears, no more death. It's a place of perfect peace, where every wrong is made right and every hurt is healed. The New Jerusalem is a symbol of the ultimate restoration of creation, where God's presence fills every corner, and his people will live in perfect harmony with him. But here's the key: who will enter this city? Revelation tells us that only those who have remained faithful to God, who have followed the Lamb, will enter into the New Jerusalem. It's a place reserved for those who have chosen to live according to God's will, who have trusted in his salvation and lived with love and justice. This is not just a promise for the future. It's a call to live with hope and purpose now. But there's also a message of warning in the final judgment. The book of Revelation speaks of a great white throne, where God will judge the living and the dead. Those whose names are not written in the book of life will be cast away. This judgment is a reminder of the importance of how we live our lives and who we choose to follow. It's not about perfection, but about faithfully following the Lamb and living out his teachings of love, mercy, and grace. The final judgment is both a hope and a warning. For those who have accepted God's grace and followed Christ, it's a message of comfort and eternal reward. But for those who have rejected his love, it's a sobering reminder that our choices matter. Our actions, our faith, and our relationship with God determine our place in the world to come. In the end, Revelation paints a picture of a world transformed, a world where God's victory over evil is complete, where his kingdom is fully established, and where his people experience the joy of eternal life in his presence. It's a vision of ultimate hope, where all things are made new. And while the road to that future may be filled with trials and struggles, the message is clear. The Lamb has won the victory, and because of that, there is a new heaven, a new earth, and a new Jerusalem waiting for all who trust in him. As we wrap up our journey through the book of Revelation, let's take a moment to reflect on the biggest takeaways from what we've explored. We've seen the epic battle between good and evil, the Lamb's triumph over the beast, and glimpsed the glorious vision of heaven, the New Jerusalem, a place of perfect peace where God's presence reigns supreme. Through it all, one thing is clear. Revelation paints a powerful picture of hope. Despite the trials, the suffering, and the chaos that may surround us, God's ultimate plan is to restore all things and bring about a future of justice, love, and eternal life. But here's a question for you, something to ponder as we consider the events of our world today. Do you think these prophecies are unfolding in our time? Are we witnessing the beginning of these signs in our own lives? The wars, the social unrest, the rise of technological control, are they pointing to something greater, something beyond what we can see right now? I'd love to hear your thoughts, so drop a comment below and let's dive into this conversation together. This is the kind of topic that gets people thinking and talking, and I'd love to hear your perspective on how these ancient prophecies relate to the world we live in today. Before you go, if you found this deep dive into biblical prophecy intriguing, be sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. We've got plenty more thought-provoking content coming your way, diving even deeper into the mysteries of the Bible and how they connect to our modern lives. So hit that notification bell, stay connected, and join me for more insights as we continue exploring the big questions that shape our world. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.